from Terry Fontenot, and then open up for questions.
Ready to roll? All right, guys. First of all, we appreciate you being here today. We appreciate you guys being patient with us. I know we did this kind of at a different time than we usually do it, and we made a late change. We appreciate you guys adapting. I kind of want to thank some people in the building. We've had a very productive, effective, efficient process getting prepared for the draft. There's a lot of people that have a lot to do with that, starting with administration, all the work they've done and continue to do with the salary cap, getting us in position to do some business. The pro scouting staff has done an exceptional job working along with the coaches and bringing in players that fit the ethos, that fit the character, the culture. And they've allowed us to fill some needs and check some boxes heading into the draft. I want to thank the college staff. Again, they've been on this process for over a year, and they've done an exceptional job in an uncommon year, in a unique year, and they've still figured out a way to get their jobs done, and they've operated and got us all the information we need. I want to thank IT, analytics, development. We can't go through and name every name, but you guys are a big part of this process, and also the coaching staff, where they have a lot on their plate. They have a lot to do, but they've done a good job working along with the pro scouts, the college scouts, giving clear visions of the types of players that are going to fit here. And they've evaluated a lot of players. This is a very inclusive process, and there are no egos involved. And it's our process. It's going to be our draft. It's our free agents. It's our team. So we appreciate everyone, and we feel very excited and prepared going into the draft.
All right, we'll open up to questions in order of submission. First up, Zach Klein, if you want to hit your two questions and just address who they're for when you ask.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Terry, this is for you. I wondered if you could just walk me through the evaluation process. How many prospects did you start looking at, dwindle down to interviews, dwindle down to how many are seriously be considered at that number 4 spot?
Yeah, well, overall, when you go through, you start off, it really is a narrowing process, and you're constantly trimming the fat, and you start off with a big number. I can't give you an exact number, but you start off with a big number, and you get your board down to, I want to say our board's probably about 150 right now. And you go through that process it starts off with the college scouts. They have several evaluations on the players, and then you get the coaches involved, and they evaluate the players. We get in meetings together, and we discuss the players and discuss the fits, and you get the medical staff involved, and there's some players that might not fit medically. And so it's really a narrowing process. So I would say right now we're probably down to right around in that range of 150.
And do you know who you are picking at number 4? And if so, when did you come to that decision?
Well, there's still variables involved. So we know the players that we would be discussing there, and we can all anticipate the first 3 picks, but it has to actually happen. And then from that point, we have to weigh the options in terms of if we trade back and compare it to the player we could get it for, or if we trade back, what would be the value? So we have to weigh all those different variables and those different scenarios. So we know the players we're talking about, and we've gone through the different things that can happen, but you never know what's going to happen at that exact moment, but we know the players that we're talking about.
Tori McElhaney.
Yeah, my first one's for Terry. You've already mentioned this, but I wanted to go into more detail about the salary cap. Y'all have already had to work pretty hard just to get under the cap before the start of the league year. And I was just curious what more needs to be done in terms of signing this draft class, and maybe if you could talk in maybe general terms about what the next steps are.
Yeah, Tori, you're right. It really is, and I respect the work that you guys have done on this, because it is true. And it's a challenge, and we knew it was going to be a challenge, and we're fine with that. It's just we have to continue going through that process. We still have work to do to be able to sign our draft class and be able to operate throughout the year. So it's a challenge. There are different options we can look at, and we look at it. We're not looking at it as a negative. We think it's an opportunity, and we're excited about what we're going to do. We're going to have a big rookie class, probably maybe the biggest rookie class that we've had here. And we're excited about that. We're going to bring in a lot of young, hungry guys that we're going to have clear visions for what they are, and they're going to have chances to compete early on. And look, we've had players in the building. We've had some unselfish players that have taken pay cuts and players that have restructured. So it's been a good opportunity for us, I believe. But Tori, you're right. We still have a lot of work to do.
My second question's for Arthur. I know you said the first time that we talked to you that you loathe groupthink. And I feel as though when it comes to the draft, there has to come to a certain head and there has to be a certain element where everybody's on the same page. Do you feel like you've reached that conjuncture, or are there still discussions between coaching staff and general manager with Terry?
No, we've got a great process with Terry when he opened this thing up with his opening statement. It's the truth. I mean, we do love groupthink, and we've had a great set of opinions. You have your college scouts who've been working tirelessly. They don't get a lot of the credit. They're on the road. They bring a lot of the information, and it gets filtered in. And then the process has been great. Everybody's had a voice, coaches, scouts, everybody in those rooms, and it helps. It helps, to find that we want what the guys that we want to bring to the Falcons. We got to have conviction about it, and we can have disagreements. But when we walk out of there and we set it, we understand we have a clear vision. We come to a consensus into a room, and we feel great about where we put the players on the board. But that was a big part of our process, and we stuck to it. That's who we want to be.
All right, dear Orlando Ledbetter.
Yes, for Terry and Arthur, can you all reflect on how the collaboration has been for you all over this pre-draft period for the betterment of the franchise, and touch on what has been the role of Arthur Blank in this process?
Yeah, the collaboration, has been excellent. And I would say, starting with the man to my left, he's obviously very smart and he has strong opinions, and yet he doesn't have a ego. If he has an ego, I haven't seen it yet in all our time together. And he's a great listener, and he does a great job, whether it's myself or, like he said, the coaches, the scouts, in terms of listening and allowing everyone to have a voice. And it's been great collaboration. And it's been if we're making decisions on anything, major decisions on players or anything in life, I want to talk to him about it, because he has a good way of looking at things. And so it's been excellent. It's been exciting. We know it starts at the top with that, and it's been exceptional. And you asked about Arthur's role.
Yes. I also wanted to hear from Arthur on the collaboration too.
Yeah, I mean, Terry pretty much said it, and it's the same way I feel about Terry. I mean, both of us, this transition has been unbelievable. We obviously didn't know each other well coming into it, but I feel very fortunate to be working with Terry, and it has. Both of us listen. We listen to the other coaches, the other scouts, and that's what we want, and we mean what we say, and that part has been great. And obviously, we're excited going into tomorrow night and really throughout the weekend. It's not just about the fourth pick, or any scenario that we move back. It's about all the players we bring in here. That's the heart of your team. I mean, a lot of attention gets put on the first pick, and I get it. It drives rating, it drives clicks, it's exciting. But the reality is, we're going to bring 9+ football players in here for the first time to be part of this culture in year one. So we're excited about that.
And the second part was, what was Arthur Blank's role? Scott Pioli described the 6 years he was here as he, helped you all along the way, but he didn't get in the way of the decision-making process.
Well, that's been his role the entire time. I mean, it's, he runs the whole A&B Sports and Entertainment, and he's been awesome. And we've leaned on him for multiple, whether it's a role as a mentor and some of the hard decisions we've had to make so far. He's going to ask questions, and we got to have the answers of why we want to do stuff. And that's in any industry, in any business. We all have bosses, and that's the way it should be. And so, there's, like everything, there's a lot of rumors that go around, and people want to build up these narratives that this or that. And look, Scott Pioli can speak on Scott Pioli's experience. Great. Terry and I will speak on our experience. It's all we know here together in that role. So, people want to, talk about things in the past. Great, they can shed a light. That was true for whatever time that was, and so it's been great. I mean, he's been great, great to talk to about a number of subjects, not just the draft.
Yeah, it's been great. He's given us, I would say, unwavering support, and like Arthur said, when we wanted to, obviously he has a lot of experience and a lot of in business in general. So we can discuss anything with him in all aspects of the business. And he's always available for that. And he's given us every resource we need. And he's empowered us and he trusts us to make the right decisions. D-Lev, that's a nice hat, man.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff Schultz.
Hi, guys.
Jeff.
First question for you, following up there earlier on the trades thing. Where do you stand in general on the benefits or the issues with trading down to accumulate assets to help build the roster? And kind of going with that, what is the point at which you would sort of cut things off and say, no more, we just got to make a pick?
Yep. It's really a case by case where, Jeff, we have to weigh it if a team, wherever that team is, and the assets, the draft capital that team would give up. And we have to look at the player we would get it for compared to us anticipating the players that we would be looking at that later pick. And then obviously taking in consideration the future picks that we would get. So it's really a weighing process at that point. And we've talked to every general manager, and that's just normal prior to the draft to communicate with general managers and see what teams are willing to do. But some things will only happen on the clock. And so we'll be prepared and we'll have went through the scenarios, but it's just a weighing process in terms of what we would get compared to the player that we think would be there.
And then second question for Arthur. There's a saying in sports, coaches want to win today, general managers want to win tomorrow. We tend to often have a different eye on things. So I think, as you both know, and I'm sure you won't name the players, but there's, one or two players in this draft who undoubtedly could help you today. And there's probably a few players in this draft who undoubtedly can help you tomorrow and could even be perceived as best for the long-term, plan for this organization. So as a coach, how do you process that? And in terms of working things out with Terry, and is it difficult for you as a coach knowing maybe we should take this player better for tomorrow, or does part of you want this better player today?
Well, there's a couple of things. You're always looking short-term, long-term is what you're essentially saying.
Yes.
We're always going to, when we roll the ball out there, our expectation is to win. And so how do you do that short-term and how do you do it long-term? And that's any player you bring here, regardless of the position. I know that's easy. It's what's driving it, whether you're talking about the quarterback position, which I assume you're alluding to, or you're talking about other position players. We're looking at all those. Anybody we want to bring in here, we want them to help us long term. And that's the investment you're making when you're picking it, especially early in the draft. So that's always in consideration. What's the plan short term? What's the plan long term? Things can change. There's a lot of variables that go into it. So we're always discussing that, Jeff.
Do you struggle with that at all or not?
I think it's a struggle. It's just part of the job. You better have a vision for now, and then you clearly need to plan for later, because there could be a lot of unintended consequences if you're only looking, if you're that short-sighted.
Kelsey Conway.
Thank you.
Terry, my first question is for you. How much of a role has Kyle Smith, Dwayne Jones, and Anthony Robinson played in helping you get the draft board set and the whole draft process?
Yeah, good question. So Kyle Smith, actually, he's run the meetings. He's come in and hit the ground running, and he's actually run the meetings, and he's been exceptional. I was just telling, he usually calls me. He calls me all night, and I haven't slept the last couple of days, and I figured out the reason why is because Kyle usually calls me at 11 o'clock, and he gets my mind racing because he's so excited and passionate about so much, and he's got that natural energy. So he runs the meetings, and Dewan and A-Rob have been obviously excellent going through the process, and their leadership in this department has been excellent, and the entire college scouting staff. It's been going through those meetings has been really good, getting to know some of the guys that I haven't known, but there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of conviction, and they're very well prepared, and they do a lot of work. So it's been a really good experience going through that process with that entire staff.
And Arthur, heading into free agency, one of the biggest holes on the roster in terms of numbers was at safety. Obviously, you added Harris and Harmon, but do you feel like you're set at the safety position with those two guys, or is that a position that you guys will look to add more players to over the next month?
I don't think you ever look at it that, you're just set at that position. It certainly helps in the pieces we've added to the roster going into the draft where you maybe don't feel as desperate to reach in certain areas. We're excited about Eric and Duran. We're excited to bring those guys into our program, and they're quality veterans that can play, that they fit our scheme. So it helps. But I don't think you ever look at it kind of to what Jeff was asking earlier. I don't ever think you just say, on paper, hey, we signed these 2 guys, you're set. We draft this player, you're set, because there's so many things that happen, and you're constantly looking at the roster. The injuries happen; they're going to happen. Unfortunately, things come up during the season, so you're constantly looking to improve, and so that'll be at any position we have.
Go to Michael Rothstein.
Hey, y'all, this question is, I guess, first for either Terry or for Arthur, in that and it's a little plays off of Jeff's question. How palatable is it with your first ever pick to take a guy that could potentially be sitting for a year and a half, 2 years, if you went, say, the quarterback route? Like, is that something that's even palatable in your situation right now?
I think when you're picking at 4, we're trying to take an impact player, whether it's a player that's going to sit or a player that's going to play right away. We want to bring in an impact player that fits the culture, that has the right makeup, and we have a clear vision for that player. So whether it's someone that's going to sit or whether it's someone that's going to play day one, we have to have a clear vision, and we have to feel really good about not only the player and the skill set, but also the person that we're bringing into this building. And that's when you talk about any draft pick, really.
And Terry, the second question would be for you. It's a little bit draft adjacent in that, have you made decisions on fifth year options yet? And where does that stand at this point with Calvin and Hayden?
Yeah, those are things we've discussed, but we need to discuss that with those players and with those agents and make sure we have those communications with them as opposed to doing it in this forum.
Okay, thank you.
Steve Weiss.
Hey guys, first off, props to Jeff Schultz for taking like a champ that Terry, you did not compliment his hat as opposed to D Ledge. So props to that. But there,
first I thought Jeff was wearing a North Carolina hat because the color is just to kind of coach, but I can't tell.
But no, hey, just kind of looking at, I know the quarterback conversation, has been what it's been, but if you don't take one at 4, is there one you like among that 150 you were talking about, especially looking at the lack of depth at that position? I mean, could you draft one in a later round? Maybe it's early to second.
Well, we have a plan to add quarterbacks, and there are some good quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round. And if you look historically, there have been quarterbacks that from the first round, from the mid rounds, the late rounds, and there's different ways to acquire quarterbacks. And there's quarterbacks that have been successful and not successful in all those rounds. So we have to go through the whole process and evaluate every quarterback, top to bottom, and turn over every stone and make sure we're going through that whole process with those players. So we understand we have to add quarterbacks to the roster, and there's a lot of good ones and a lot of good options.
And Arthur, just your experience in this, do you believe in, and when you add players, some people are like, hey, I want guys who are captains or leaders or who played in a certain program. Are you a believer in that, or just to you it's more so fits scheme and culture when you're looking at some of these prospects?
Yeah, it more so fits the scheme and culture. I mean, I think any player we bring in here, regardless of the position, they got to fit. And that's when you look at the history of the draft, there's a lot of excitement, and we got to get it right. We got to get the right players in here that can be successful. It doesn't mean somebody, we may not can't go some routes and be successful. We just don't feel they're a fit for us. And that's pretty common throughout the league. And that's part of the process. I mean, you go back, you look year over year, a lot of attention is on the first round, but the heart of your roster is going to be these mid-round picks. And they need to fit, and we need to have a clear vision for them. So it's been exciting, and we're excited about that, but the culture and the fit is really, really important to us.
Jarvis Davis.
Hey guys, this question is for the both of you all. What does your ideal player look like, and how have you gone about weeding out guys that doesn't necessarily fit into what you want in a player?
The ideal player, well, look, we have spent time with, again, Dean and Dave and Marquise and really all the coaches, and they've gone through the profile of exactly what the prototype is for each specific position, and we've discussed that. But then what we have to do is, as we go through it, all the players aren't going to fit in this perfect box. So we have to know what the non-negotiables are, and we have to know what you have to have at this position, and we're finding traits. As you get to later in the draft, sometimes you're finding developmental players with traits, and they're not all going to be perfect, but there's been a lot of communication with the coaches at the specific positions. And like Arthur alluded to, is it's about the makeup, and it's not just about the skill set. It's about bringing in the right types of players, because when you have the right makeup and you're smart, tough, and competitive, and you're passionate, and you love ball, and you love to work, and you love to train, we know we have the people in this building from all the resources in this building to get players to reach those ceilings. So it's about us finding a trait that we like and finding the right makeups, and we know we'll get those players to get the most of their ability.
Yeah, we're not just fixed. I mean, you have ideal sizes you're looking for, but that, as you guys know, I mean, players, it's not one size fits all. I mean, if there's somebody that can add value to this team in any phase, you know, we're going to look at him, we're going to bring him in. I just don't subscribe to that notion because a guy went to a certain school or he's got to be this height. Like, you know, we were looking for good football players anywhere, no matter how tall they are, what size they are, what school they went to.
And also, a follow up to you, Arthur, is it being that the success that you have with Derrick Henry as a running back, and does any of that kind of transfer into your line of thinking as far as like, I got to get this guy that I can get the ball 25, 30 times a game?
No, because I don't believe it's one of those comparisons. Like, you know, I've gone on the record a few times that's not fair to any running back we bring in here. If you're going to compare him to somebody like Derrick, you know, we need that person to be who he is. And so I think you got to be objective about it. Okay, why did that work here? It doesn't necessarily mean that you got to hit, you know, copy, paste, print. Here's the game plan. We're ready to roll. That's not how it works. I just don't believe in comparisons. I mean, we're going to look for guys who have unique skill sets that can help us move the football and score touchdowns at the skill positions, regardless of position, receiver, tight end, running back, fullback. So I just don't get in those comparisons because it's just not fair. I mean, that, you know, we had a lot of success there because of Derrick, and that's a credit to him and those guys there. But it doesn't mean that we got to pick somebody and think, oh, he's going to be exactly like player A or B.
Charles Odom.
For Terry, you mentioned that you still have work to do to be able to sign your draft class. What role does that cold reality play in any talks that you may have about trading down for additional picks?
Yeah, it doesn't really affect the draft in that sense. We'll still go through the draft and go through and do what we think is best in each particular round, and we'll sign an undrafted free agent class, and we'll go through the whole process. I wouldn't say it affects the draft in that sense. The only thing it affects is being able to sign, say, free agents or make trades we have to consider it if there's some opportunities to trade for players, but if their cap number isn't right, then that's where it plays into part with the draft, but it won't affect the actual draft. We just have to, and we have a plan, and we'll figure out a way to get it done. It's a challenge, but we're embracing it, and we're excited about it. We'll make it work.
For Arthur, has the decision on the off-season program, not been able to see your guys on the field right now, affect any assessments you may be wanting to make this time of year on your current players, you know, for these decisions in the draft?
No, I mean, you know, there's a lot of noise made about it. I mean, we know what the offseason, the program really hasn't changed since the CBA in 2011. You know, now you add the virtual, and we all adapted to virtual learning last year. There's always going to be some sort of virtual right now as we're still, you know, working through a pandemic. And so, you know, there's going to be virtual settings, and that's the reality is, and we got to make the most of it, but it doesn't affect any decisions being made. I mean, you got to be objective about the spring. I mean, it's a voluntary process that guys want to come in here and work, and then they allow us to go on the field and coach them at some point. We'll go out there and coach the guys that are here. And you don't want to overreact, regardless to say it was a non-pandemic year and we were out in the field in spring. We're not looking for the king of spring. We're looking for guys that are going to be here to be good football players in late July, August, and help us win in the fall. So,
you see the side comments? Are you reading this? D-Led's crushing our guy Jeff's hat. He said his hat's whack. You reading this?
No,
it's hilarious.
I like both the hats.
Mark Bradley.
This is for Mr. Fontenot. Wins and losses go by the coach's name. Rightly or wrongly, how a GM is rated goes on how he does in the draft. I know you've been around drafts for many, many years, but this is kind of the first one you've had where you get to make the call. Do you feel nervous? Do you feel excited? Do you feel exhilarated? All of the above? None of the above?
Yeah, Mark, I appreciate the question. And I would start off with that there's definitely no pressure, because I believe the pressure is in the process and the preparation. And that's where you put the pressure in. Someone told me, I think it was like a month ago, that pressure is a privilege. And that's where, when you think about your players are in 2-minute situations and in the fourth quarter, at the end of games, in the red zone, like, you want those players that want the ball. You want the coaches that want to make those calls, like people that embrace the pressure moments. So, but then also I would say there's not any pressure on one person, because it really is our process. It really is. It's myself and Arthur. Even the narrative that wins and losses go on coaches and players go on the GM, we really don't see it like that. That's not how we operate. It's our process. Everything we do, we discuss it, and we're doing it together. So every win and loss is on both of us. Every player that doesn't work out is on both of us. This is our process. And when I say us, I'm talking about the men sitting up here and the men that have been grinding, the coaches, the scouts, everyone in this building, that it's all about the team. There really aren't any egos, and it's our process. It's about us. And so there's not pressure on one person, because we're doing this together.
Yeah, there's one word I didn't use back a minute ago, and that word is fun. Is this fun?
It really is fun. Yeah. It's because this is what we all love to do. This is what we love to. We all have passion in what we do, and we love to do it. And whether we're in here late at night watching players or discussing, like, there's a lot of men in this building, and men and women in this building, that are really passionate about this, and we're really excited about it. It's fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to follow-ups. Zach Klein.
Yeah, Terry, I always find it it's mind-boggling when you hear a player say, I was surprised to go to Team A because Team A never even interviewed me, went through the process. In your experience in selecting players, have you always drafted somebody that you had interaction with, whether it was obviously back in the day in person or in Zoom?
Yeah, we've had interaction with a lot of players and multiple interactions, and we really take advantage of even being at pro days and because not being able to work players out or not being able to be in the buildings during the year, we've really had to take advantage of every exposure that we could with the players. So I would say we spend a lot of time with these players, and that's what you want to do, because you want to take advantage of every exposure and every opportunity, not just with us. It can be us, or it can be with other coaches or player engagement. You want everybody to touch the players, and there's going to be a lot of different opinions, but we want to take advantage of as many exposures as possible with these players.
All right, D-Led, your follow-up.
Yeah, I got my list of 18 questions down to 3. So, can you evaluate the pass rush group? How was scouting the HBCUs? And I didn't really understand the Julio rule the last couple of days. Sound like you just said you were answering your phone. Can you expound on the Julio situation in those other areas for us?
You know, it would be a lot easier, D-Led, if you just kind of came in the building and started working for the team. You can be in our draft meetings, and you can be a part of everything, and we can discuss. And we're meeting with the cap about the cap, and you can sit in on those meetings, and you wouldn't have to ask all these questions.
Well, no, that's the beat writer's job, is to ask a whole bunch of questions.
There's some talented pass rushers in this draft, and there's some different flavors, and there's some raw players, but sometimes at that position you always want to add pressure players. And so sometimes you'll have players that might not have the production or might not have reached their ceiling at this point. But you have to, when you're looking at pressure players, you have to value that, because if you can find the right pressure player, you want to take advantage of. And I would say there's some good ones in this class. Obviously, HBCU, we evaluate every prospect, every player. We're in every school. Again, that's where our scouts do an excellent job. They make sure they're going to turn over every stone, and we have connections and resources everywhere. And so we're going to dig into every player. There's not going to be a prospect that we don't know everything about. And the last question was Julio.
Yes.
And D-Led, I really don't want to make this about Julio, because we hold that player in high regard, just like you guys do, just like everyone outside this building does. And so we hold him in high regard. The answer to that is just pointing to the cap and pointing to the fact that when we'll answer calls on any players, when teams ask about players, we have to answer those calls and we have to listen, because we do have to continue to. We knew when we stepped into this, we were going to have to make some tough decisions, because it's just the reality of it. That's where we are with the salary cap. So we have to make some difficult decisions. So we have to look at all the different options and all the different scenarios. And so if someone calls about any player, we have to discuss it and do what's right for the team. That's what we're always going to do. But we hold that player in high regard. It's just we have to look at every option to get where we need to get.
Jeff Schultz.
Thank you.
Terry, first of all, for the record, it's a Jekyll Island hat, and it's turquoise, not Carolina blue. Okay.
I like the Carolina blue better, but
Okay.
I'm partial.
Specifically on a player, Kyle Pitts, everybody I've spoken to says he's going to be great. There's no dispute about that. Even this being an NFL draft and nobody knows, obviously, for sure. But however, almost everybody or many think, wow, that's really high to take a tight end. Do either of you have any reservations about taking a specific position at so early because of that?
Look, Kyle Pitts is a special player, and I would say, and there's a lot of players in this draft like this, but he's also a special young man too. Just if you look at his makeup, even being only 20 years old, so he is a very talented player, and we look at it like we have to evaluate all these players, and we'll say what they are and have a vision for what they are. And we'll determine when the right time is, and we'll compare them to some other players. But there are a lot of good players, Jeff, sitting right there at that spot. We're going to be looking at a lot of very talented players, and we just have to weigh it. So I wouldn't say you can or can't take a specific position at a certain point. I would just say we have to evaluate the man and evaluate the skill sets and determine what's right for us.
Michael Rothstein.
Yeah, I have a couple follow-ups, and Terry, I know you don't want to make this about Julio, but it's obviously a fairly large deal. What would you need to hear to say, okay, I'm going to actually make this move? Like, what would you need to really hear or see to say, I feel comfortable doing this?
Yeah, I don't want to put a number on it or put a specific. It's just Again, it really is just a weighing process. And again, I really don't want to make it about him, but I understand he has an expensive contract, and any team can look at our cap situation and understand that we're going to have to make some decisions, but don't want to make it about that player and what we would take for him or not, because again, hold him in high regard. And it's just, we'd accept calls on any player, and then we just have to weigh it and do what's best for the organization.
And just kind of follow on that, y'all restructured a whole bunch of players. Like you were saying, players took some pay cuts. You didn't do that with Julio. Why did you decide not to do that with Julio and yet do it with other players?
Well, we're trying to have some you really don't want to, because it's not a good, when we restructure contracts and you're having more dead money down the road, those aren't decisions we want to make. We have to make some of those decisions this year, but we want to have some balance with that, because we want to, and this isn't going to be an overnight fix with the cap. It's going to take time, but we want to have a healthy cap at some point. So we can't just restructure every contract, because it's just hurting us in future years. So we look at each situation and we we determine how we're going to move forward. But we have to have some balance in that regard.
If I could just one more and quick, I just want to maybe drill down on that a little bit more. Why then did you not restructure Julio? What went in the decision to not restructure Julio when you did restructure Matt and Jake and some of the other guys? Like, what made not doing that on Julio what you wanted to do?
And I got it. I know we keep talking about Julio, but I don't want to make this about one player and drill down into one player. It's just when we look at the scope of things and we look at the circumstance we're in, we make some decisions, and there's a lot of variables in it, and there's a lot of really smart people. I promise you, there's a lot of really smart people that we discussed it with and determined what to do, and it's not over. We're still going through this process, but we want to have balance, and we want to do things the right way, and we're still it's all fluid, and it's all in process right now.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go to Tori McElhaney and her Lion King necklace.
Thank you. No, everybody's talking about everybody's hats, and I have a great necklace on, and no one said anything. Really, really fun. Okay. So just to be clear, I feel like this. I really want to be clear on this. Are you guys waiting until the 49ers make their pick at number 3 before we really know anything about y'all's plans? Like, in the next 24 hours, we're not just going to wake up tomorrow morning. It's like, oh, the Falcons have made a decision. It's really going to be about what the 49ers are doing at number 3.
So, Tori, are you asking if we're going to announce the pick before the first pick? And
I just want to know if it's breakdowns in there.
Possible. Because
I just want to know if I'm going to like wake up in the morning and like have a ton of stuff to do about like trading down or anything. I just want to make sure that like we're clear that like the Falcons, we won't know what they're doing until they're on the clock.
I mean, I think otherwise, I mean, it's all rumor. I mean, that's what drives this time of year, and people make up things and they throw things out there, see what sticks, you know, just to fill airtime. Look, we have contingency plan, and you're picking up 4. If we're picking up 1, sure, you know, you could be dead set on who you're going to take. But as you guys have all seen, I mean, things happen on draft night, and we got to be prepared for anything. So, and again, like I said, what Terry mentioned, when you're on the clock, who knows what kind of offer you're going to get? You got to weigh everything. So I promise you, and again, I don't want to speak for Terry, but it won't be coming from either one of us, and it's not true. So people can make up what they, I guess, want to make up now.
Cool. And then one more for you, Arthur. You know, there are so many talking heads talking about how this isn't really a deep defensive draft class. But as you've talked to Dean Pease, does he see in this class what he's looking for in terms of kind of, you know, changing the scheme around, getting some guys in to fill in some holes?
Well, we feel like there's really good players, you know, all over this draft at multiple positions. I think that the easy things to focus on is the top of the draft. Everybody gets excited and they put these narratives out there. This is a really great, you know, whatever year. There are going to be really good players taken. We're going to look back in this draft, 3rd, 4th, 5th round. And whether that's the D lineman or there's going to be some D lineman is going to emerge in this draft. And we hope we get the right one if we take that position for the Falcons. Because that's you can just go look back history year after year. People get really excited about the first round, top 10, and then you look 2 years later, like, oh gosh, why don't you take this guy at 38? You know, we had a 35th pick. That's a valuable pick. I mean, all these picks are valuable. So there's good players in here. We got to make 9 picks at least, and then who knows how it shakes out. But we feel good about adding good football players from this draft.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Kelsey Conway.
Hey, I just have one more quick one for Arthur. How's it been working with Matt in the first couple of weeks that you've been able to meet together virtually?
It's been good. We've had really good virtual meetings, not just with Matt, with the entire team. It's been fun, you know, it's just getting to know these guys, them getting to know us as the coaching staff, and trying to develop these relationships, earn the trust both ways. And Matt's been great, and all the guys have been participating in the virtual setting have been really good. You know, we're in year 1, and it's good to get to know each other through that setting.
Jarvis Davis, follow up.
Terry, Arthur mentioned earlier about, you know, filling out the roster in the mid to late rounds, but how important to you is it to hit on those players and find value in those mid to late rounds?
Yeah, good question. And it's really about having clear visions. So because it's easy to say this is a developmental player, but Arthur needs to, when he sets his inactives and sets, if you're here, you have to be contributing to this team in some way. So if you're a developmental, say, defensive back or linebacker, you have to have special teams value. You have to do something in the kicking game for Marquise and Hoff. So we have to have clear visions for every player we bring in this building of how they're going to be successful, so that we can go through that process of getting them everything they need to be successful. So yeah, it's important. The players we bring in, whether it's mid rounds, late rounds, undrafted free agencies, we want to have clear visions for how they're going to help this football team, not just throughout the week, but on Sundays.
And Coach, being that, you know, a former offensive lineman, what has been your assessment of the guys up front since you've been here?
You know, we've just been in the virtual meetings. These guys have been great. You know, we feel like we got some good young players that are here, that are on our roster that can help us now. But, you know, obviously, as you mentioned, you know, we're going to go as the line goes, and so we're excited to work with those, and we'll see what other pieces we can add throughout the weekend and throughout this offseason. It's been great.
All right, we got two more follow-ups to close it up. D-Led, followed by Zach Klein.
Real quick, for Coach Arthur, you talked about the opt-outs earlier. How you doing kind of a floating schedule? I mean, you would have got 2 mini camps, rookie mini camp, and extra time in the good old days. But, you know, now I guess just the camp and some video stuff. How you going to, you know, float that schedule for you know, get everybody ready and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, the league sets out the parameters. We're in it's voluntary anyways. So
it used to be voluntary, mandatory, but
sure. But you know, once they changed the CBA in 2011, these are kind of it's been the off-season schedule is a pretty standard issue with the 9 weeks. So I mean, that's what the parameters are, and we're going to work with the rules that everybody out there, the other 31 teams are working with, and the guys that are here that come into the virtual meetings. We're going to coach them, and then whenever they decide whatever phases we go to, and players get on the field, we'll work with the guys that show up. It's voluntary, and everybody's different. So when you got vets that know how to get themselves ready to play, and this, I don't think anything's going to change in terms of they'll be evaluated who's going to help us in the 21 season. That's going to be decided in camp. You know, under the old rules, new rules, it's not going to be decided in May. So.
Thank you.
Finally, I think we just wrap it up on this, Terry. I got a group chat going with every media member on this chat. All our final mock drafts are due at 11 o'clock. All the first 3 picks are locked in. So who should we pencil in at 4?
That's good because, you know, Jeff also, he has such a unique way. Jeff asks the same question like 8 different ways. And
yeah.
But I'd love to look at all y'all's mock drafts. I think that'd be fun.
Good luck, Coach. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.